Hi, my name is Barb Nangle. I'm the founder of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. This is episode 9, My Tools of Recovery series, part 2, Reaching Out. This is the second in my 3-part series on my most important tools of recovery. As a reminder, my number 1 tool is pausing. My number 2 tool is reaching out, and my number 3 tool is focusing on me. Today's topic is reaching out. My next episode will deal with focusing on me. For me, reaching out means both reaching out to other humans as well as reaching out to my higher power. I'm going to begin by talking about reaching out to humans. Somehow, I grew up with the notion that I had to do everything myself, that I wasn't allowed to or not supposed to reach out to others to ask for help. It was just not an option for me to ask for help. In fact, I was the helper, the fixer, the rescuer. God forbid I should tell somebody I needed help. One of the things I've learned in recovery is that we are compulsive and obsessive in isolation, and we heal in community. That means we need to reach out to others and to allow them to see us and to be connected to us. And eventually, we need to be vulnerable with them if we're truly going to heal. The first time I did the steps in one of my programs, we didn't have any sponsors in our area, so a group of 4 of us did the steps together. What's interesting is that in that group, I told them one time, I was going to call one of you guys when I was really upset, but I talked myself out of it. And it turned out that all of us were doing that. Each of us would have the impulse to reach out after we learned that was a thing that people do in recovery. But then we'd talk ourselves out of it. So we made a pact in this group that the next time any one of us thought that we were going to reach out to someone else, we would not talk ourselves out of it. And then none of us did it. None of us reached out. We didn't follow the pact. And that's how difficult this stuff is. Even though we talked about it, we acknowledged it as a group and made a pact not to do it. None of us reached out to the others. We still couldn't follow through on reaching out to other people. And then eventually we did start to reach out to each other one by one. For me, before I started reaching out to others, I'd always think, what are they going to do anyway? So let's say, for example, that I was crying. I'd think, what are they going to do? I learned so many things from reaching out for others. For one, help is awesome. I love help. I've always known that about giving help. I just didn't know that about getting help. And let me tell you, it is awesome. I learned that I don't actually have to know everything, and other people often have really good ideas. It's really good to get other people's perspectives. I've also learned that it's not weak to reach out to other people. And in fact, even if it was weak, being weak is okay. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me or that I'm inherently flawed or that I'm completely broken and unfixable or whatever other awful thing that I used to think. I've also really learned that I am not alone. In my case, none of this thinking was at the level of conscious thought. It was all below my consciousness. I actually think of it as subterranean, like below subconscious. I think that one of the things that everybody in recovery has in common, regardless of what we're in recovery for, is that we all isolate. We're really good at isolating. The thing is, we simply can't recover in isolation. If we could, we would have, because most of us have tried fucking everything before we came into recovery, or we wouldn't be here. If we could have found a way to recover in isolation, we would have done it. So we do have to reach out to other people. We're responsible for reaching out to other people so we can let them in, so that we can let them know what we're going through. And we have to open our minds to the ideas, the compassion, and empathy of other people. I just can't say enough about how important it is to reach out to other people. 12-step recovery programs are we programs, not I programs. In addition to reaching out to other people when I need help, I've also learned to reach out to other people to see how they're doing, to let them know that I'm thinking about them, to say hi. If someone in a meeting is struggling, I might call them and say, hey, I heard you were struggling with XYZ issue and I had that same thing, so I hear you. I really identified with what you said. I'm with you, just so they know they're not alone. Another thing I learned about reaching out to other people is this. If I am stuck in my own head and cannot get out of my own shit, then I pick up the phone and I call someone else and I ask how they are. What this does is it gets me out of my own head, and sometimes that's what I really need. I was taught that you don't just pick up the phone and call one person to do this. You pick up the phone and call 3 people. And I don't mean 3 people that you get their voicemail and you leave them a message. I mean 3 people that you actually connect to and have a conversation with. And I was also taught that if the person says, I'm fine, how are you? Then I'm to say, actually, I'm trying to get out of my own head right now. I want to hear about you. It doesn't matter what they talk about. They can talk about recovery, or they could talk about what they're doing right now, or hobbies. It doesn't matter. The point is that you're getting out of your own self. You're taking the focus off of you and off of your shit and putting it on someone else. And the reality is, if you reach out regularly to people while you're doing well, or at least while you're doing okay, then the chances of you reaching out when you're not doing well skyrocket. It's like you've exercised and strengthened this reaching out muscle, so that when you're not feeling the greatest, you can easily pick up the phone and call somebody because you've done it. Now, I want to talk about reaching out to my higher power. In the previous episode, when I talked about pausing, right at the end, I said that if I don't pause, it doesn't allow my higher power to enter the situation. And honestly, my relationship with my higher power is absolutely key to my recovery. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about my relationship with my higher power, and then talk about reaching out to my higher power. I happen to use the word God to refer to my higher power. I know that for some people, that's just not something that works for them. And the thing is, you don't actually have to believe in God to recover, but you do have to believe in a power greater than yourself, or a higher power of some sort, in order to recover in accordance with the 12 steps. Perhaps I might talk about how one may find a higher power that works for them in another episode, because I've known many people who were able to recover without believing in God. But not today. When I came into recovery, I was already a spiritual person. I used the word God to refer to my higher power, so that was not a challenge for me. Side note, years ago, when I first became a spiritual person, which was around the age of 35, I could not use the word God because the connotation of God being some white man up in the clouds just didn't work for me. I couldn't conceive of God as having gender. Like clouds don't have gender, mountains don't have gender, so why would God? And I also couldn't identify with God being personified. I just couldn't wrap my mind around God being like a person. But over time, I've shed that baggage about the word and now use the word God because it's expedient. What I care about is my relationship with God, not what other people think about it. Because remember from my earlier episode, I care more what I think of me than what others think of me. So if someone really wants to know what I believe about God, then they can ask me and they can engage me in a conversation about that. Anyway, as a result of my recovery, my relationship with God has been utterly transformed. What I mean by that is that I use God now in ways that I never used God before. I turn my will and my life over to God multiple times a day. I say certain prayers in the morning, afternoon, and evening, and I often say them in between as well. This is my conscious contact with my higher power that's mentioned in step 11. I'm continually turning my will and my life over to the care of God, asking God to show me his will for me and give me the power to carry that out. As a result of turning my will and my life over to God, my life is profoundly better than it was when I was trying to run the show. I don't have to worry anymore. I don't have to figure things out. In fact, when I hear myself say that phrase, figure it out, I know I'm screwed because I've never figured out a goddamn thing in my life. When I'm trying to figure something out, I just need to hand it over to God and say, please take care of this because I can't do it. So my relationship with God has changed in that I use God in ways I never did before recovery. What's also really different is now I also ask God to use me, which is something I never did before recovery. I ask God to help me be of use to God and my fellows. I ask, what can I do? Who can I be? What can I say? What are the thoughts you want me to think so that I can help those who are still sick? So that I can help heal the world. And the places that has taken me in recovery are absolutely astonishing. My life is profoundly different as a result of my recovery because, among other things, I have turned my will and my life over to God. What this has done for me is built a relationship with God. I know they say that faith is belief without evidence, but at this point, my faith isn't belief without evidence. It's belief with evidence. I have so much evidence, day after day, year after year, of evidence of my higher power acting in my life and acting through me, in addition to the way I've seen higher power show up in the lives of my fellows. So I've learned that when I'm afraid, I reach out. When I don't know what to do, I reach out. When I'm concerned about someone, I reach out. If I have a simple decision to make, I reach out. If I have a complex, important decision to make, I reach out. I really try to ask God to show me his will for me and give me the power to carry that out in so many situations. It's really amazing when I remember to do that. And that's the thing though, remembering. What helps me with remembering is that pause I talked about in my last episode. If I'm able to pause, then I can reach out to my higher power. But sometimes I'm not even capable of reaching out to my higher power, but I am capable of pausing. And I think because of my conscious contact with God multiple times a day, that sometimes my higher power just inserts himself in there anyway, even though I haven't asked, because I need it. And because I maintain my conscious contact very regularly throughout the day. So learning to reach out has been profoundly helpful in terms of my recovery. I'm not alone anymore. I used to feel alone a lot. In fact, it used to be that if anybody ever asked me what my greatest fear was, I always came up with being alone. But that kind of surprised me. I never really understood why that was the thought that came to mind, because I thought, I really like being alone a lot. In fact, I live alone and have lived alone for most of my adult life, and I fucking love it. Even though I'm an extrovert and I need people, I also need a lot of alone time. But there's a huge difference between being alone and feeling alone. And I don't ever feel alone anymore because I have humans that I'm genuinely, authentically connected to, and I have a higher power that I'm genuinely, authentically connected to. And I reach out. I wasn't reaching out before recovery, but now it's my number 2 most important tool of recovery. And if it's not already one of your tools of recovery, then perhaps you might want to give it a try. That's it for this episode. Tune in to the next episode in this series on my tools of recovery for my third most important tool of recovery, which is focusing on me. Thank you so much for listening. I sincerely hope this helps. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can get future episodes of my podcast.